we're live and we're 10 seconds.
From NFL quarterback to Hollywood to the mayor's office and now behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. Free at last! Free at last! Thank
on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. I'm old Alan Autry, and I'm just so honored and humbled to have you with us today on this beautiful big Wednesday with the big Fresno Fair going on. The fair is so great, you have to say big twice. Big Fresno Fair. And again, I have to always tell the Facebook folks, and I want to thank y'all because this audience on Facebook is continuing to grow, and just appreciate you so much tuning in. And our radio listeners, YouTube, Twitter, just thank you so much. But the radio folks can hear the musical intro with the Beatles there, Revolution, but you know, on Facebook, it's got to go dark because they got to pay money for that. I don't want to do that. And so you'd see me fist pump for no reason and screaming for no reason. I'm actually screaming with John Lennon there on the Revolution there. So that's what's going on. I haven't completely lost my mind. Almost there, but I got a little bit left. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you so much. I'm so happy and so honored to have with us today a special guest, Esmeralda Soria. She is the councilwoman from, I got to make sure I get my pronouns right. Councilwoman, councilperson, council. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
You were on the council. Council member. Okay. For City of Fresno, District 1, and we're just so honored to have her. Thanks for coming on the show, Esmeralda.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I love that intro.
Do you like the intro? It's pretty good, isn't it?
I'm like, I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to have a really cool intro.
Well, we put together, those are sound bites that I've heard over my life that just stuck. You know, oldies, I'm an old dude. So, you know, John Kennedy's ask not what your country can do for you. That's what you, boy, try to say that nowadays. Tear down this wall, the freedom, all the stuff. And then Lou Gehrig, here was a man who was dying, got up in front of all those folks and said, I'm the luckiest man on the face of it. This thing's in Lombardi going, what the hell's going on out here? And Franklin Roosevelt, that's, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But anyway, thank you. It was Jose put that together, so he's the artiste that's responsible for that intro. But thank you so much. Esmeralda, you've been on the council for how long now?
This is my 7th year.
Okay, I've got to ask you. So 7 years ago, you ran.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Exactly, right? No, that is a very good question. You know, just to give you a little bit of background as to why, I ended up running for office. I was born and raised here in the Valley.
Yeah, tell us a little bit. I want to get into it. Give us about yourself, your background.
So I was born and raised in Tulare County, small town called the city of Lindsay. I went to Lindsay High.
Lindsay Cardinals.
Yeah, Lindsay Cardinals. And, I'm first generation. My parents came here in the 70s, like many immigrants do, right, in search of that American dream. And so they came and worked here as farm workers. My job essentially was to do well in school and do better than what my parents were doing. My parents for a long time struggled as working in the fields, and they told me, make sure that you work hard and get your education. They sacrificed a lot for us. They left, a country that where they were born to give us that better opportunity. And so sure enough, me and my siblings, we all listened to what my mother said, because education was big for them. My mom only had a 9th grade education, my father 7th grade education. And so graduated from Lindsay High, and I went to UC Berkeley on a full ride scholarship. Bill Gates, actually, it was the first year in 2000 where he initiated his Gates Millennium Scholarship. And so I'm a Gates Millennium Scholar, and had the opportunity to get my bachelor's degree completely
Do you remember
paid
the
for.
day? You remember when you got that scholarship?
Oh, absolutely.
What was your parents' reaction? They had to just be.
Oh, they were so proud. They were incredibly proud. They didn't realize, right, how much it would cover, but they were proud that, that I had obtained a scholarship. And they didn't know how life-changing that would be. I don't even think that they realized, even though they knew that
it was good,
and that we should continue our education. My parents had no idea what UC Berkeley was. UC Berkeley still one of the top public universities in the whole world. And I don't think my parents really
they have
understood.
a conservative think tank there.
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere, I think the political
There's a
science,
house back
the political science department, actually was pretty. I will
then?
say, yeah. When I attended,
But go ahead.
But-
Yeah, I didn't mean.
No. It's I know, right? Because
we have fun on that.
Yeah. But I don't think they understood really how much my life would change as a result of going, away.
Was it a full ride?
Yeah, it was a full ride.
Wow.
I ended up going to Berkeley. During that time, I've always been someone that is very intrigued with trying new things and open. And so while I was there, I went abroad. I lived in Europe for a year and studied in Spain. I also worked in Washington, D.C. And through my work going to Washington, D.C., working with a civil rights organization, at the time it was called National Council of La Raza, which was a civil rights organization that was started in the 60s, working on immigration policy. That's really what kind of reminded me of the importance of being in those rooms or at the tables making decisions and at least giving the input, because we all bring a unique perspective. And I felt that as a young woman from the Central Valley, growing up in an immigrant farm worker family, that I could bring value to the discussions that were happening around the issue.
Gosh, I think we have similar backgrounds. I was raised in the fields, same situation, followed the crops, moved 6 times in 5 years, ended up in Riverdale from the 5th grade on. Thank goodness my parents didn't, Dad didn't move again. But I remember when I got a full ride scholarship, it was an athletic scholarship. The only offer I got, and my mother just was in tears. There was no way I could even afford books, much less go. But on that vein of living life, how often do you experience you're in a situation, you're trying to hash through things, and you get some people that are making decisions that are very highly educated, Harvard grads. I'm not picking on Harvard, but but they're developing these plans for people, say in the Central Valley, to help them, but they've never lived anything close like that. So it's all theoretical to them based on what they've heard. Yet you have a person sitting in their midst. How do you go? I respect the discussion here, but you're wrong in this aspect. Let me tell you why you're wrong, because I've lived this life, and this is what's true. Have you ever found situations like that where you had to raise your hand and go, "Oh, time out! You guys are going the wrong way here." Simply go ahead.
Absolutely, and every day, not just when I had the opportunity to go and do an internship in Washington, D.C. when I was an undergrad. When I worked also at the White House, when I was in Sacramento doing policy at the state level, and then even today on the council, I do bring a unique perspective, and that was one of the reasons why I decided to run for office, because I felt that there was a segment of population that didn't have a voice on the council, and I thought that it was an important voice, an important perspective that, hey, I wasn't going to change everything, but I would bring my ideas and hopefully in a collaborative manner, shape policy to impact people and give people an opportunity to feel like they are being heard. And I bring that perspective as at the time, 7 years ago, I was the youngest council member elected. I'm a woman. I am Latina. I am, first generation daughter of immigrants, someone that went to public schools my entire life, grew up here in the Valley, didn't grow up in Fresno, but I grew up in a rural community and understood the challenges of living, in poverty. And I think that background gives me an edge, and there is value in bringing the ideas because we have lived experiences that are so critical and important in the policymaking process.
Yeah, some things you just have to experience it.
Absolutely.
In order to speak intelligently and construct a plan to help, you just got to base that on reality, not what we think reality is and that personal experience. Let me ask you this about Lindsay. I'm going to assume some things here. Tell me where I'm right. You grew up small little town, family over here, family over there, really tight knit, worked hard work, but everybody did hard work in Lindsay and Riverdale. And these really strong relationships where everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everybody's business, which is kind of charming in a good way. It used to be. But how bad did you want to get out of there?
Pretty bad.
Yeah, me too. No, I same thing with Riverdale. You have an ambition. It's just, it used to scare me to death, the thought of living the rest of my life out in the fields and dying out on the tractor like pretty much my dad did. That was my future.
And having to go to work with my parents on the weekends and the summers, we had no choice. My parents didn't have childcare. So guess what? We got drugged along.
Childcare was the field.
Yeah, it was the fields. And you know what? I appreciate every single moment where my parents, sometimes forced us to do things that, as a kid, as a 9-year-old or even 12 or teenage kid, you don't want to do that. You want to stay home, watch cartoons, hang out with your friends. But guess what? We didn't have that luxury. Right. But I appreciate that now because I learned the value of working hard, and I understood, how hard my parents were working just so that I had the opportunity not to do that when I grew up.
Absolutely.
And that's why I feel extremely, extremely blessed to be where I'm at today, because it was because of my parents. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to dream.
So you feel blessed to have been raised in that little town, but also being blessed to be able to leave that town and now be blessed to be able to go back to that town and enjoy it. I tell people a lot, when I'm writing my book now, and it's a part of my childhood, but I always thought it was those fields were a prison. Riverdale, as much as I loved it, was a prison. I was scared to death that was going to be my fate, dying out in those fields, just working as long as you could, keel over from emphysema or what have you, from the dust and all that stuff. And yet I found myself as mayor when I needed to clear my head and to make a decision. I didn't go to the beach. I went to those fields. I'd drive out there, sometimes in my suit, take a walk out in these cotton fields that I used to just hate. So what used to be my prison was actually my freedom again. It's amazing how that works. And I know you probably have that same affinity for Lindsay now, being able to go back. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. Esmeralda Soria, we're going to get her opinion and take on the politics at the national level, the state level, and the local level, because I've been around a long time and I have never seen those three levels of politics so intertwined that what happens in Washington affects us here in Fresno and every local community around the country. This is Alan AUTRY, No Retreat. We'll be right back.
And then he said, hey.
Okay, see some of this. Oh, Facebook, folks, we got a lot coming there. Happy Wednesday from Linda. Great to hear from you. Arlene Cutter, hi from Western Maryland. Hope you are having a great show. We certainly are. Pat Martell, hope all goes well. Thank you, Pat. And Melanie Raymond, always with great quotes, says, hard work builds character. Certainly does, Melanie. Melissa Lee Sneed says, my husband was in the field still in diapers. Yeah, you didn't have the child care. You're right. Yeah. I mean, it just, and Delilah, hello, listening from Charlottesville, Virginia. Appreciate you. Phyllis Dorsey. Hey, you doing, Phyllis, from Colgate, Oklahoma? You're watching. Appreciate you. Let's see. Linda Coupler from sunny Michigan. Well, great. We're waiting for some rain here, right, Esmeralda? We need some rain here.
Some water.
He says, listen to Alan Autry. He is the real thing and genuinely cares about his listeners. Well, you know I do. There's so many flaws in me. It's too many to mention, but I do care about you. And we got to get that back, because in this, a lot of the social media stuff, when you're dealing with people, distant stuff and texting and emailing, and it's that personal interaction. We're losing that. And that concerns me quite a bit, how we want to keep that. But I was listening to a guy on TV, Steve Hilton. He's on a Fox News show, and he's trying to get this initiative going. Got a big following to get rid of cell phones. Take them away from kids, not let kids have them till they're 16. I get you, Stephen. I understand. But these ain't going away. Mm-mm. They're not going, right?
We have them everywhere.
They're not going away. And your kids, they're going to require that you have them. We have to teach our kids how to use them in a healthy way. And it starts with us learning how as adults, because I'm a victim of it. My wife, Kim, was telling me the other day, she says, you know how many times we look at our phone? She'd seen the article. I forget how much, but it was several hundred times a day that the average person looks at their phone. Just check for this and that. And I'm going, I would never do that. And I started being conscious of it. Before breakfast, I'd look at it 20 times. Go and see this. Is Esmeralda going to cancel?
Yeah.
Yep.
1 minute.
Oh, thanks, Jose. 1 minute. Yeah, we get a few. Gosh, you're getting a lot of comments. Thank you. So, Karen Eggles saying howdy from Waco, Texas. Well, howdy there in Waco, Texas. And we love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. We all live in the same neighborhood nowadays with Facebook and
30 seconds.
That is true.
We're all part of on the same street in one sense or another.
Yeah.
Drinking my latte here. You know why I don't drink a lot of lattes? Because they cost a latte.
10 seconds.
And there's inflation is making them cost a whole latte more. Oh.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to the show. Oh, man, when I listen to Tom Jones, I think about my wife, Kimberly. Her and Steve Cloud on the show a lot. And our bumper music, we may not have the best talk in town, but we got the best bumper music around. But my wife, Kimberly, and Steve will get rocking. I see Esmeralda. Nothing better than rocking out to Tom Jones. I mean, who plays? Hey, do yourself a favor. Put Tom Jones on your playlist. And then call your kids. Say, Tom Jones. They go, huh?
Yeah, they won't know.
They won't know. But do it. Promise they'll get hooked. Okay. Boy, this show's going by fast. All right, here we go. We're going to delve into the politics. We did the personal story, which is an amazing one. I can relate to a lot. And just to listen to your story, I heard it at Learn for Life as well, and what an impact you had on those kids. Learn for Life folks out there is a local charter school. They do great work with kids that have just gotten behind and had some mistakes in life. Some they caused themselves, some that they couldn't avoid, and got behind in school, and they want to go back. And Learn for Life really does a good job of what they say, meeting them where they are. And they asked Esmeralda to be the keynote speaker at an event a few years ago, and it was just outstanding. She just had the kids and everyone there just mesmerized with her story. So I hope you're able to get that out. I told you that afterwards, and maybe the media, as you term out and you decide what you want to do, I hope you find a place on your plate to be able to get that out to people, because the one great thing about technology is nowadays you can get it out in scale big time. All right, we've got the situation at the politics on the national level. All right, let's start with the border. What's happening there? You see Fox News covering it with this mass push to the border. you being from an immigrant family, we're all I'm immigrant, but many generations ago. You hear one saying we have an open border, got to stop, and then you have others saying, no, we've got to have walls and let nobody in at all. Where do you stand on that at the local? Because it is a local level, because we are a destination, one of the epicenters of immigration, especially out in the fields. But give us your take on it.
So first, I don't know, for those folks that maybe haven't had a chance to visit the border, there is already some barriers and walls built. I'm very familiar with the border of Arizona and Mexico and Sonora, because that's where my family lives today. And when we go visit, you have to cross the border. So there is already, some form of control or barrier that obviously, if it was very easy for people to get here, you would probably see more folks that are undocumented. But people don't want to leave their country just because, right? I think when we think about our lives as children of immigrants, my parents didn't say, wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to leave to the United States for fun, or just because, they have a free public education. And that's not what they said. What was happening is they couldn't make a living in Mexico. Their economy was shot, and they couldn't survive, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what families are doing. So I think what we have today is that we have a system that doesn't work for the 21st century that we're in terms of immigration. The immigration system is broken. And,
Amen.
And we need
on every level.
Yeah, at every level. And so we need to find a plan that ensures safety in the border, and that there is a pathway for folks that do want to come here to be able to get here. Because I can tell you that today, my father, who is now a U.S. citizen, thankfully he went through the process when Ronald Reagan did the amnesty in 1986. Then in 1997, my father and mother became U.S. citizens. They petitioned for his sister to come here to the United States. Well, it's been 20 years since the application was put in to.
Do you think that was a result of 9/11? When these extra layers were put in?
It had,
or is it just the process
before.
is so slow?
Yeah, because what happened,
being broken, what you're talking about,
which is the broken system. And the other thing is not just fixing our immigration system, which is currently broken, but it's also figuring out as a country, right, with our neighbors, what do we do to make sure that the economic destabilization that has happened is mitigated, so that families can live and stay in Mexico or in Central America, right? And that's the bigger issue.
So that's the long-term fix solution.
Absolutely.
Short-term relief. So I know you're aware of this, probably, just going to assume the obvious, but there are so many Mexican, Hispanic. I always say Mexican, Hispanic because I got a tongue lashing. I grew up in the fields working with poor blacks, poor Mexicans, poor whites, and not many Asians out in the fields at that time, but got to really know the cultures. And I got a lesson to you. I'm Mexican. That's a Mexican flag, not a Hispanic flag. And so people say, well, they're Hispanic the same. I say, well, you do it at your own.
It's a little different.
Do your own at your own peril, because there's some ardent Mexicans that they're Mexican. But a lot of my Mexican friends, which are so plentiful to mention, because it just, you go up here in Central California and real part of it, it's just, you make a lot of friends and a lot of people from the South, Oklahoma, Missouri, Texas, that work the fields with the Mexican culture. So they're really intertwined, and they know each other. So they'll Tex-Mex restaurants and those sort of things. But there's this belief that most Mexican people here in California want open borders. That is totally untrue. They want orderly borders, but they also know that the immigration system is broken, just like you said. And when I ran for mayor and in my State of the City speech, my second State of the City speech, I took a lot of flack because I made the immigration issue a central issue of our local issues, of being in school, the overcrowding of the emergency rooms. Now, what they cherry picked on that, folks who wanted to go at me, is I said, where would you go if you don't have access to a doctor and you have to live in the shadows? And I looked and did the research, and you find out that the American big business, the chambers of commerce, had as much to do with this broken system not being fixed. They were part of the big villains because they wanted cheap labor. Mm-hmm. So they said, come on over, Jose. And he says, wait a minute. He gets to the border and says, sir, I can't come across there. And he laughed, you smell that, Jose? That's freedom. You want some? He goes, yeah, but it's illegal. And they go, hey, we're not writing tickets anymore. Blow the stop sign, get here. By the way, bring your wife, because we have 2 people working in the families, the mother and the father. So we need somebody to raise our kids. So bring your wife too, so they can be the nanny. So you open it up and wait, and they came, and they were part of building a strong America that we have today. Yet you look at the legal immigration system, you have to put this application, that application. Back when I was researching, it came out to about $1,200, and none of it was guaranteed. Most of them were no. But then in the legal immigration system, I found this to be fact. I had inside dope on this. They would give you there the number. Hey, call this number. So they're already out 1,200. And you call this number, and it was of the local coyote who could bring you over illegally for $1,000. And you see the gosh awful things that happen on that journey. And to get here, so it was an inhumane system being propped up by big business. And then folks, and I'm going to let Esmeralda respond to this a little bit and move on to the next subject. But people don't understand this. You got to do a little history. Yep. People ask me, Alan, why can you say you're a friend of farmers and a friend of Cesar Chavez? It's pretty simple. I said, I worked out in those fields with my mom, and when they had to relieve themselves, they went and found some tall cotton. That's where the old Okie phrase, you know what, doo-dooing in tall cotton. And no water was provided. You had to bring your own. And at the end of the day, we'd run out of water. There's no water there. Chavez come in and said, you need to put a bath in. You need to let these people have the dignity of going to the bath. And you have to provide some water. So I said, yeah, I support farmers for providing the jobs, and I support Cesar Chavez for bringing dignity to the job. But here's the point on legal immigration. Chavez was adamantly against.
Yeah, he was not.
Because he knew you couldn't unionize them.
No. Because of the cheap labor issue, which you bring up.
If they're illegal, you can't organize illegal activity.
Because they'll come in and take over the jobs.
Right, but the thing, exactly, and then if you tried to organize them because they're here illegally, they had a Bracero program that was making great headways. He supported that, saying, let's take that program, legal workers, he wanted to unionize them out in the field so you get the basic. And then when he got beat by big business, a lot of people think this is Mexico's fault, Cesar Chavez. No, big business, you had as much to do with this situation we're in now, and I would say the major contributor. What say you?
No, I think that they play a big role. They historically, like you said, it's not a problem that was created, just in the last few years. It's been a problem for decades. That's why
cheap labor.
Yeah, cheap labor has been really the driver behind it. And we did see. So, when you mentioned the guest worker program, the Bracero program, both of my grandparents came here during the World War II as braceros. And then they returned back to their country. And if they could have done that, they would have kept doing that. But then the program terminated.
See, that was what was wrong. That's what was cruel about it. I bring that up in my talks with people. So just do a little education. When America needed the Mexican workers, World War I, all our boys over there fighting it, bring in the Mexican workers. Our boys come back, get out of here.
Yeah.
World War II, all our boys over there fighting. No, we need people to work here. Come on over. Our Mexican brethren, then our boys come back, get back out of here because we don't need you anymore. No, there should have been a focus on building what should be the closest relationship we should have as a country. The United States should be with Mexico. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no,
it's right here.
Absolutely.
Canada and Mexico. Those are our two, yet we do everything to try to
separate.
Yeah, and to the point where you sit back and let a cartel take over, when you could part.
And that has been, I think, the biggest destruction that we've done, and created even more safety issues at the border because we've done that, because we haven't created a system and a flow and a partnership with the country. I think that that's why today we see our local farmers and the farmers here in the Valley be strong supporters of a guest worker program, because they know the value that it brought, back in World War II. That was the last time that we've had a guest worker program. And
it was orderly, it was above board, it was respected. And if you wanted, and listen, I'm all for the path to citizenship. I got my Aunt Tessie who came here from the Philippines, and she went through the process, became a citizen, and that's the way you do it. But when you fracture it and you poison it by letting illegal activity happen within the system, because I'll tell you, folks, we need to have, I'm just saying right now, we need to have a secure border. There's no doubt about that. I believe if you don't have a secure border, it all starts with that. And that's when we can all come together and start working on things. But to think that all the illegal people that are coming across here illegally are through the Rio Grande and Del Rio, Texas, and Arizona. You know where they're coming across? They're coming across here at San Diego with the right license plate and the right code word. The legal immigration system, and I'll say it anywhere and a half, it is the most corrupt system we have, but the tentacles lead everywhere. To big business, to politicians, because to get somebody in here, how do I know this? Because my farmer buddy, I won't put the name, brought the family of his top worker, his 6 other family members here. Cost him about $10,000 this morning. And they came right through the car, right through the gates of San Diego and here to the Central Valley. Because they paid off the system. It's about $10,000 to get a family of 6. And you go in. So the legal immigration system needs to be cleansed. It needs to be an investigation, because that's where I would venture to say 75, 80, maybe even 90% is coming in, because that system is being paid off. And so anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, boy, this time is flying. We're going to get Esmeralda's take on the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill. Then we're going to quickly hit the state and then to local. Well, we're going to be moving fast, so we'll be back fast. This is Alan AUTRY, No Retreat. Cotton fields back home. Boy, the power's going.
Do you think we're ever gonna fix it? I was hopeful that we would have gotten a compromise.
Here, unfortunately, in this country, we have adopted a crisis before common sense type of behavior. That the forethought, like the state legislature back in the 50s and 60s, they built a water system, envy of not just the state but the world, and they did it with a part-time legislature. Everyone met part-time. Everybody had jobs. Democrats, Republicans came. And they thought ahead. So they did things. They knew what was the needs were going to be, and they were able to get together and get it done. And now to do anything, it's, as you pointed out, it's such a zero-sum game. It's like we want it all. We're not going to get it, and you can't even sit down and have a bipartisan discussion. I mean, Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell should be meeting all the time. They used to do that. And especially for a issue like immigration, until it becomes more of a full-fledged crisis, which it is now. But there's so many answers to it. It can be done. You could get a good, solid plan that secures a border. And Trump talks about that big wall, big door, beautiful door. Well, you don't hear the Republicans talking about that beautiful door at all. Let's just build the wall. Well, what about the big, beautiful door? You got to make that part of your lexicon, part of your linguistic powers to make sure you talk about that. But no, it's a zero-sum home. And so I think it's just going to take leadership that somebody will listen to on both sides that can galvanize the independents. Because I think even on the Democrats' side, you have a liberal, what I call the classic liberal argument, that don't want any more to do with this woke thing that's out there than a conservative. You have conservatives over there going, these
One minute.
Proud boy things. get out. And I think that independent thinking people have to come together and somehow have a revolution. And how that looks like, I don't know. Yang thinks he can do it with a party. I don't know if another political party do it. I just think it's going to have to be locally around the country. We say, look, it's time we fix this, and we start with the legal immigration system. We have a pathway to citizenship. You take how many, and I told Republicans, okay, all these Haitians that went places in America, I said, you can curse the darkness, turn them light. You think they're automatically Democratic voters? Go find out where they are, and go tell them why your Republican ways are better. Go with it. Don't sit back there. Go. They're here.
10 seconds.
That's just the way my brain thinks.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
Hey, and welcome back to the show. Boy, it's flying by. We're with Esmeralda Soria, who's our guest today. So honored to have her, Representative District 1. All right, Esmeralda, the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think that we have a tremendous opportunity to really build our country and take it to the next level, rebuild it. If we just look at our local cities, City of Fresno is a perfect example of how much work is needed and investment in neighborhoods. And I think that this bill will, give opportunity to cities like ours to change how it looks. And so I'm hopeful. I know that there's still, a lot of challenges to get a good compromise, but I think that this is the opportunity to do it.
Let me ask you this. I'm not the brightest chrome on the bumper. My wife will tell you that. She's right. But she loves me. I love her. But Fresno County has never been at the table, really at the table, when they divvy up the goods. Mm-hmm. As mayor, it was an 8-year battle to make sure that Fresno just got the crumbs from these so-called. And the old trust but verify, you can't even go to that degree with trust with the state and federal governments. For example, on this bond for the water, they told City of Fresno and representatives that we were going to get our fair share. We got jack. And I told folks, Mario Santoya, and Mario knew there's more truth to it than, I know, Alan, that's it. I said, when it comes to shove, they're not going to give this water to Fresno. You guys have to continue to raise hell. You got to continue to be out there being the voice, because if you stay together and you bark loud enough, that's the way you get something from the state. And I'm seeing our mayor, who I love dearly, behind Newsom on this education stuff. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I get the bipartisan effort. You're the mayor of all people, and you made that choice to be there. But I would caution him, and I have, and anybody representing this city, you don't go looking for a fight, but you better be willing to fight. And right now, there should be a coalition led by the mayor and the city council giving a clear signal to Washington and the state, because most of that money is going to come through the state. We're not going to take crumbs anymore. Mm-hmm. You better make sure, and this got to be Democrat, Republican, Independent, all together. Why isn't our mayor leading that charge and drawing those lines in the sand? And I look at it, and he's already past the point, I feel, where he should have been doing this. Say, look, this stuff's going on in City of Fresno. I'm going to make sure that we have our fair share. I'm going to be in Sacramento. I'm going to be in their face. Why isn't that happening?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, and we should be doing.
You're ready to fight?
Absolutely. I think that if we look back a few years ago, that's one of the things that Mayor Swearingen was really good at. That's why she was able to bring the Tiger Grant to open up, the downtown street or the mall. And she was able to secure funding for BRT. But I think that there's an opportunity for us as local leaders to say, hey, this is our list, because we have a long list of things. I will say one of the things that has happened, a positive out of, the pandemic, that the city of Fresno has seen investments that we would have never seen before through the CARES Act, through now the ARPA funds that we are receiving. But that's a drop in the bucket.
Exactly.
And
compare that to what LA and the Bay Area is going to get. It has to end. I did my best. I took a lot of heat for having a press conference, and I took on Schwarzenegger because on his transition team, he had no one from the Valley on his transition team. This was after a meeting I'd had with him over the phone. He promised that the Valley would be treated fairly, and then right off the bat, a week later. So what do? Stay silent because I'm afraid I took so much heat off of that. I remember somebody from the chamber called me and going, "Do you know what you're putting at risk taking on the governor like that?" And I asked, "Well, you tell me. What $1 billion waiting to come to the San Joaquin Valley am I putting in jeopardy by taking on Schwarzenegger? What water issue to build a dam here in Fresno am I putting in jeopardy? They don't have anything for us now, so what am I putting in jeopardy by taking the man on? He broke his word to us. Somebody's got to stand up to it." And then he wound up apologizing. He wound up giving us much more than we ever got. He created a commission for the Valley to bring attention to our needs, and told me flat out, his quotes, goes, "It's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease." And a direct quote from him. I didn't do him too well, but
and I think that,
have we lost our will to fight? Our people are so afraid of what's going to come at them. Is the mayor intimidated?
I'm not sure. I'm going to have that conversation with him. But I do think that you bring up a really good point, and this is opportunity for the mayor and the council to work together, along with our national representatives. From both sides, right? Because that's what's going to make us stronger. Right. That's how we're going to have a bigger voice.
Exactly.
And we do need to identify those projects that we agree on, because there's a tremendous amount of need that the Valley has, the city of Fresno, and the region. So what are those, top 3 things that we can say, hey, we need? That's what we were saying for, at the state level. Similarly, that's what I told the mayor this last budget cycle. I said, what are the top 3 things that we want? One of the things that I said, we need money for our fire training facility, because otherwise we're going to have to pick and choose what we're going to fund. And
I don't think the fires are going to go out around here anytime soon.
Exactly. We need a training facility to train not just city of Fresno future firefighters, but the region, right? And so guess what? As a result, because we put it on our top 3 list, we were able to get the funding. $25 million came to Fresno, and we're going to start seeing the construction of this, state-of-the-art facility.
For it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to be willing to fight.
Absolutely.
You can't turtle up as a Fresno representative or the Valley. You think that because the state and the federal government, they fight like Mike Tyson when he's hated. You think if you turtle up that he's going to stop punching.
Yep.
If you think I'm sorry, well, Mike's going to show a little mercy on me if I turn. No, Mike's going to keep punching till you're down on the canvas, out cold.
Well, and there'll be other people that will outfight us if we don't don't get it together.
And we being so small and we don't have enough billionaires per square inch to be a player in terms of that way of doing things, and we know what that way is. There's just not enough capital and power concentrated here enough to make a difference. So it's all us little folks have to come together and go from the little chihuahua that's barking in the distance. I use this analogy. You're up in Sacramento when they're putting this budget together. There's like a looking at each other, go, "You hear that? You hear that? Oh yeah, that's Fresno." Well, we got to go from the chihuahua barking in the distance to a bulldog that'll bite. And if we come together, like you're saying, one of the key players is going to be Jim Costa. I love Jim Costa. He's a good friend of mine. We differ on a lot of things politically, but we agree on some things. But Jim has got to say, look, I got Fresno on fire here. And we got this bill coming up here. We need to make sure that they get fed in California just like you feed Northern and Southern California. And by the way, in a House that's only a 5-vote differential, don't make me go Joe Manchin on you. Mm-hmm. Don't make me go Kristen Sinema on you. And now that Jim's a behind-the-scenes guy, but you got it, when you get all that together, you pointed out you've been in the federal government. You know your representative has to be willing to fight in Washington, D.C., but Jim's not going to do that to that degree if you're not organized here and saying we're dependent on you to go get this. And if you don't get it, we're holding you accountable.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. So I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think there's a lot of work to be done in a short period of time to make sure that the city of Fresno and the Valley as a whole gets its fair share, because every time we get left behind.
Let me ask you this. I've often said this, and you may disagree, but the city of Fresno, simply because of its size, it's 550,000 people, 29th largest city in the country. Don't we here in Fresno, the government, and to a certain degree citizens, have an obligation to the rest of the Valley? The smaller little towns, the Mendotas of the world, the Lindsays of the world, Wood Lake, Parlier, you go down Early Mart, you go all the way down, and even, Bakersfield's got some power, but they're not us, not Fresno. People think of the Valley, it's Fresno State Bulldogs or Fresno. Mm-hmm. Don't we have a responsibility to fight for them? And for fighting for us is with them, that our sense of responsibility has to extend beyond our own city limits?
I do. As someone that understands the rural communities, I do feel that sense of responsibility.
Who's going to fight for Lindsay?
Because if we do better, if we're able to make sure that the rural communities are doing also better, guess what? It helps the city of Fresno.
Right.
Because we are the place where they come and do business, where they come and visit.
Folks from Lindsay are going to come to River Park to shop. They're going to come to the Tower District.
Yeah. Folks from Mendota, where do they come and go to the doctor? Where do they come and come shopping? This is the center. And so, absolutely, if rural America does better, urban America does better.
That's a very good point. Oh, man, we just have, let's see, we got 6 minutes left. Okay, locally, going to go to a place here, but I think it's really important. The council appears, just from what you read in the papers and social media, dissension, accusations of groups coming together and voting as a block, which is not really, hey, you do it when you can do it, man. Your council now is basically perceptually leading the city. They're the leaders of the council. And I've really never seen that in the last 20, 30 years, where the council was basically setting the policy over the mayor, had that type of cohesion. But there was a recent incident where you came off the sidelines, and watching you normally kind of get away from these partisan little spats that mean nothing. You're trying to get there and get something done. I know you have your own political beliefs and that sort of thing. But the thing with Bredefield and happened with his assistant, and you were quite vocal about that. Why did you pick that issue to become vocal?
Well, because I'm tired of the hypocrisy that is happening. I've been on the council now 7 years, and as I mentioned to you, before we started the show, I used to serve with now Supervisor Steve Brandau, and him and I are pretty politically
a little bit,
opposite ends. However, for me, what I understood is that if I wanted to get things done, that I had to reach across the aisle, and that I had to build relationships. And that's what this is about. It's building relationships. And I think over the last couple years, we've seen that dwindle within the council. And that's why you see a lot more kind of the division, I would say. And for me, the issue is extremely important to have been brought up at that time, which was the issue of domestic violence, and the fact that, Councilmember Bredefield really likes to say that he's tough on crime and tough on this, and goes after people and, tries to criminalize folks. But at the same time, he's defending someone that almost killed not only the fiance, but a baby. And how can you stand for that? How can you say that you're for something, yet you're trying to cover up something, very tragic in our community? And I think as the only woman, and I needed to speak up so that victims that suffer domestic violence don't feel that people in power will just put things, under the rug, and then they have no voice. And that's how I felt. I felt that it was important to speak out and to say what was happening.
Got you. Okay. Got 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask you probably the most important question, and I hope that it's the answer that's going to make me happy. I know your heart. You want to serve. You want to help make life better for folks. That's it. That's what we all should want to do. And sometimes that means just keep getting government out of the way. But you can get up every morning. I said 8 years as mayor was the toughest job I ever had, but the most satisfying, because it's very special to be able to get up in the morning and know you have the authority in you, vested in you, to help make life a little better for folks, whether it's safer streets or housing projects or bringing infrastructure to a neighborhood, like partner with Henry Perea Jr. to do that. And we're kind of opposite, not opposite, but politically different. But on this show, one of the reasons I created it was to have a segment called Face to Face, where we get people together that have been elected, that purport to be able to work through everything and work together, to get things done. I would like to invite you to be part of, I'm calling it Face to Face. Would you come on the show with Gary Bredefeld right there, and let's talk about issues?
Yeah.
Man, that was so quick. So yes, but
I've done it. So
but
there was another person that just had us sit together, less than a year ago out at La Lingerie. I don't have a problem with that.
But Esmeralda, that's why, here's the thing. You said it so quick, and that tells me a lot about your heart and where you're at, because there's going to be people that are not going to like that you even sat down with them. Our political climate's so crazy. There's going to be people, Gary, because I know Gary will say yes, that are not going to want Gary to even be in the same room with you. There's people watching right now and listening right now. They're not going to like me, or probably not going to listen to the show anymore, because deep inside, they don't want to see people get along and work through things. And I would just say to you folks, first of all, God bless you, but I pray for you. We can't go on like this at each other's throats. The latest guy to make the big move, Andrew Yang, I don't agree with Andrew Yang on a lot. Some of the things I do, but and he just left the Democratic Party because he says we cannot continue to fight like this. He went on a Tucker Carlson show, got pilloried by Jim Acosta. And Jim Acosta said, why would you go on that show? He's a bad person. Now, Jim Acosta doesn't know Tucker Carlson. They disagree, but to call somebody a bad person, you can say, I disagree with you, I'm against your policy, but we don't know somebody. You think he's a bad person. And there's people going around, I don't think Joe Biden's a bad person. I think he was horrible policies on Afghanistan and just laying back on the border, doing nothing, letting inflation go. But I don't think he's a bad person. And we're all in this together. He's our president. We should root for him to make good decisions, not to keep making bad decisions, like a lot of people on the right want to do. And people on the left, hey, Republicans keep making bad decisions so we can get in office and beat you down and get payback. So it's just back and forth. Beat down, payback. Beat down, payback. Meanwhile, us, people that want to just see lives get better, especially for the oppressed, are sitting there going, my goodness, shaking our heads. Yeah. All right. Esmeralda, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for agreeing to be on Face to Face. I'll talk to Gary, and I know that's probably going to be one of our highest rated shows. God bless you, folks. God bless America. And the good Lord willing, creek don't rise. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Bye-bye now. Now, we're still on Facebook here. And again, I want to tell folks here, thank you we just got so many comments here. And I promise I will go through them. I will read them. My wife and I read every single one of them. And just appreciate you, because we don't have a show. We don't have listeners and people that view. And Esmeralda, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to say to the Facebook folks?
Well, first, I want to thank you, Alan, for allowing me to come on the show. I really respect, what you've done for the city of Fresno, and I respect the fact that you're willing to, bring folks like me onto the show to have some of these important, conversations about, how we see different issues. And while we may not agree 100%, I can assure you that most people will agree probably 80% of the time. It's just those small differences. I think that now today we magnify them.
Absolutely.
And that's what
exaggerate them.
Yeah, and exaggerate them. And now with, just sound bites, we try to solve issues. And I think that we've moved away really from the really substance, and we forget what is the goal. And for me, the goal has always been, I know that if I can make the difference in the lives of one individual or 10 individuals, that at the end of the day, society is going to be much better because we've made the lives of people a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And so, that's my goal when I first started.
And fairer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life's never going to be easy, but you can provide fairness.
Yeah, the opportunity.
And it's amazing what one program or one individual can do.
Yeah.
One program, the Gates, what it did for you.
Oh, absolutely.
It worked for you.
And that's the responsibility that I feel. And I think I've talked about this before. For me, my mom always told me, to whom much is given, much is required. Mm. And much was given to me, by the faith that I have, but also by, the programs that existed that provided me the opportunity to go to Berkeley, to go to law school, to work at the White House, to work in Sacramento, and then to be able to come to the Valley.
And get yelled at city council.
Yeah, and
you get the highest position in the land, be a Fresno City Council. Well, thank you for your service, and God bless y'all. Like I said, good Lord willing, we will